Would you agree that, and again, I'm not forcing anything upon you. I want to actually get some input. I want some feedback. And I want to ask you, would you agree that the majority of what we learn and the majority of who we are today was taught to us when we were kids? Would you all agree that early childhood is where a lot of our learned behaviors, our life skills, our habits are formed? I'm on board with that. And I believe that depending on the teachers we had, parents we had as kids, has a lot to do with who we are today. Now, again, I say this in a non-judgmental way. And anytime you do an observation of your past, you don't want to place blame on anybody, because those people did the best they knew how to do at the time with what they had, okay? So as you know, my channel is all about bold possibilities, be fucking bold, depending on what platform you're on. So let me use me as an example to see if you can relate to anything what I'm saying, okay? So me being raised by a very critical mother and a perfectionist father, I called mom Queen of Fear a lot, and dad was King of Perfectionism. So those are my teachers. And as a kid, my love from dad and validation was based on school. I fucking hated school, didn't like school at all. I was born with a physical handicap, so going to school was painful for me. So I never really was paying attention to school. I didn't feel like being there. Okay, so that's the relationship dad and I had. Mom was raised, obviously your connection with mom is a maternal one, very nurturing one, but she came from an abusive family, physically, sexually, verbally. Bad father was an alcoholic, mother was very subservient, submissive. So there's a little background about me. So then, in a nutshell, here I am, born into that situation to a 20-year-old mother and a 25-year-old father who were giving me the best they knew how to do at the time. But obviously, there were some things that I feel that were missed out on, okay? Again, no blame. I'm taking full responsibility for this. I'm using me as an example to see if you can relate to anything what I'm saying to you. So now you have me coming up in this environment and learning subconsciously to feel not good enough, okay? Didn't get the validation or the nurturing that I believe children, a healthy child would receive. So not having that, I'm raised in the environment, growing up feeling inadequate, insufficient, something missing, and there was. So now let's fast forward to 18, you go out, you leave the house, you take this with you, you go out in the real world, and now what you have is somebody who's feeling that way, but now I'm learning that if I can manipulate people and situations and things, then I will get some type of validation, right? I would be able to put a Band-Aid on the wound. Let's call it a Band-Aid. So then you go out in the real world and you learn how to do that. That becomes your paradigm, your mindset. It's how you operate, your survival techniques. And at the same time, it worked. For the most part, it worked. I was obviously under the surface feeling that inadequacy, feeling probably sadness of not having what I thought I should have had as a child. But again, I'm learning how to cope and deal with it and get by. Then what happens is you realize the more stuff you go after, the more people, places, and things that you go after, you're still feeling that emptiness. And now let's fast forward to 2019, when everything for me fell apart. The worst depression of my entire life, everything came crashing down. Okay, so now, if you look what I just gave you, and you go back to, like I said, childhood, and learn the tools that and take the tools that I was taught into the real world, it's not really a big surprise that my world came crashing down. Now, if you're experiencing depression and anxiety, maybe you want to take a look at your belief system. How do you feel about yourself? Do you think that the way you feel about yourself has anything to do with how you were made to feel as a kid, as a child? And I can't answer that for you, but you can certainly look in your rear view mirror for a minute and kind of take a glimpse. And I don't like to spend a lot of time back there because it is the past, but the past does provide some insight. So, being completely honest with you, then yes, there are some things in my past that shape our future. Okay, so here's a classic example. If I never learned anything differently than what I was taught and how to make and how I felt as a kid, right? Then I go in the real world. Then then I'm going to create a life based on what I learned and how I feel. If you take a bicycle to a third world country, to somebody who's 25 years old, who's never seen a bicycle, and you give them a bicycle and tell them to get on the bike and ride it, do you think they'd be able to ride that bike? Probably not, because they would have never seen a bicycle and never learned how to ride that bike. So my point is asking you this, is that, so if you never learn a new way to be in the real world, then do you think your depression, your anxiety, your state of mental health has anything to do with the way you were taught, the way you feel about yourself, and how you never learned anything more than what you were taught? See, we take those ideas and beliefs and stories into the real world, and then we try to function, and when it doesn't work, we're wondering, well, why do I feel so fucking depressed and so anxious? Well, we never learn anything new. Okay, so then we hear on the videos and the books we read, and the speakers are saying, well, you got to believe in yourself. Once you believe in yourself, anything's possible. And I've been to seminars. I went to a seminar when I was younger, and Les Brown, one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best motivational speakers of our time, had personally invited me to one of his seminars, and I went, had a great time. I felt the motivation, but I still felt the emptiness underneath inside me. There's that something that's always going to feel missing until you feel it. And it's not going to be with more stuff, another relationship, more money, another car, this, that, and the other. That's not going to do it. It's like trying to fill a colander with water. The water is always going to come out the bottom. You can't fill that with anything or anybody. You got to have a sense of belief in yourself. But how do you get that belief? How are you going to find that belief of yourself to say, okay, I am something special? For me, I tried a lot. It was another sports car. I think I've said this to you in several other videos. My idea for the longest time was try to get more shit. Go get another car, take another vacation, buy another house, make more money. Boom, 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 boom. Find another relationship. That's going to do it. Yeah, that's great. No, that's not it. That's not the answer. Okay, so what is the answer? So again, the speakers, the authors, the teachers are telling us, feel good about yourself. That's great, but in my opinion, there's still something missing. If you don't have a good mental image of yourself, or you have a weak image of yourself, you don't see yourself as complete. You see yourself as broken or inadequate or deficient. Then that stuff they're telling us is going to land on deaf ears. It's not going to make an impact. So, and that's the frustrating part, right? Especially if you're going through something like depression or anxiety, you want to feel better, but you're not getting the answers. Let me share with you what literally changed my mind. Changed my mind, then changed my life. Okay? Once you change your mindset, your life will begin to change. So what I came across, and I'm sure you've seen this in my other videos, the concept of life, and again, obviously we all know how we're created, the sperm and the egg, that's how we're created, right? But for some reason, the day I was in the shower and had the shampoo in my hand and looked at that shampoo and said, that looks just like sperm, semen, cum, jizz, whatever you want to call it, that's what it looked like. I looked at that and said, this is amazing. Something hit me. It's like, sometimes we hear people say they have epiphanies. If I ever had an epiphany, this was it. I'm looking at the looking at the shampoo, how it looks like sperm. And I'm thinking to myself, this is how we were created. So we're created from a liquid form. And then 9 months later, we are this miraculous human being. Now, when I literally stopped to think about that, things started to shift in my mind, and I started to appreciate and look at life differently. Again, it did not happen overnight, but what it did do, it set me on a different path. It started to raise my level of awareness, gratitude, appreciation, and the biggest impact it had on me, it started to really fucking blow my mind. And at that time, I needed that because at that time, my brain was thinking about how I could kill myself, going through the depression, the anxiety, the suicidal ideation, the insomnia that was god awful, all that stuff I was being consumed with. But what the miracle of life started to do was take my mind, my attention off of what was trying to destroy me and start to focus on something bigger and better for my life. About life, I should say. My new belief system was starting to be formed. To look at that concept of life, and then what I did is I took an affirmation and I paired it with that thought of how life is created. And now, for me, it was something much bigger because it was a fact. My circumstances are my story. They don't mean anything. Our circumstances and our story does not mean anything to anybody else but us. But when I look at the miracle of life, it is a hard fact how we are created. It's not a story, it's a fact. And that fact started to get my attention in a way that took my attention off the depression, and again, it put out something much bigger. And then I backed it with an affirmation that I've said several thousand times over the last several years. I am a miracle in God's highest form of all creation. That became my mantra, my affirmation. Again, I have said this over and over and over and over again. And while saying it, I paired the feeling of being a miracle with the concept of how we are conceived. When I pair those two things together, it provokes a feeling that sends a signal to the brain as this is my new norm. I'm starting to feel better, gracious, great, a supernatural being having a supernatural experience, living a life of infinite possibilities and unlimited potential. Now let's fast forward a little bit more. When I finally got to the point where this is really hitting home and really hitting here, I'm feeling it inside, then it propelled me to a higher level of living that started making my early childhood not so painful anymore. It's because those people did the best they knew how to do, but they never taught me as a kid what a miracle I am and you are. Think about that. Think about what I just said. You are literally a miracle in God's highest form of all creation. You take that affirmation and you pair it with an image of how we are created from a liquid form, and I'd love to hear from you after. You can't just do it one time. You got to stay consistent with it. You got to say it so many times. You got to say it even before you believe it. But the more you do say it, the more you start to believe it, and then you start to feel it, and then you start to see it in your reality. I am 1,000% free from depression. Zero anxiety, zero suicidal ideation, no doctors, and zero medication. So something I did worked. And I'm so curious, as I share my experiences with you, I'd love to hear back from you to see if this is something that you can apply in your own life and to see if you get the same or similar results that I did that gets you on the other side of whatever you're going through. You see, you literally can change your situation. Imagination is our most creative power. Do you realize that? You can start using your imagination to get yourself out of your situation. You got to see it, feel it, believe it up here, and then you start to see it in your life. Again, you are extremely special. I know it's hard sometimes. People would try to tell me that when I was going through depression, and I didn't want to fucking hear it. I was about to blow the brains off the side of my head onto the bathroom floor. I didn't want to hear how special I was. You know, I didn't believe them. But when I took this concept and I applied it, and I really, really applied it, and I took Dispenza's meditation, being supernatural. Dispenza is amazing. That supernatural meditation on YouTube, how he instructs you and teaches you how to bring your future self into existence, right? Visualize your future self into existence. It's amazing. So I'm really curious to hear how you guys, first of all, perceive this information. Remember, there's three choices. You can neglect it, reject it, or accept it. I'm hoping you take at least entertain it. Think about it, right? Because here, what's the worst that can happen? You either stay stuck in your situation, or there's a chance, if you really become committed to the process, you can move through this thing and be on the other side of this and have all that depression, anxiety behind you, because you have a new mindset, you look at life differently, and most of all, you appreciate not who you are, but what you are. You are a miracle in God's highest form of all creation. Be fucking bold. Hit me back. DM, message, like, subscribe, all that. This is not your first video. I want to hear from you so we can keep on moving through this together. All right, you guys? See you in the next video.